Look around you for a second. Every building, every road, every phone, paycheck, and screen glowing right now, all of it runs on money. And yet almost none of it belongs to the people who use it. That's the uncomfortable truth most of us never stop to question. Because the moment you do, a bigger question appears behind it. Who actually owns the world's money? Governments say they do. Banks act like they do. Markets behave as if they do. But only one of them really controls the system, and the answer is not the one most people expect. Right now, this question matters more than it has in decades. Debt is at record highs. Interest rates decide elections. Entire countries rise or fall based on capital flows most people never see. Money isn't just a tool anymore. It's leverage. So let's slow this down and strip away the myths. First, the obvious assumption. Governments print money, so governments must own it. That feels logical. After all, your currency has a flag on it, a president or monarch's face, a seal that says legal tender. But here's the problem. Most government money isn't actually created by governments. It's borrowed. When a government needs money to build roads, fund wars, or prevent collapse, it doesn't open a vault and pull out cash. It issues debt, treasury bills, bonds, promises to pay later with interest. And who buys those promises? Banks, investment funds, pension systems, foreign governments, private capital. In other words, the government becomes a customer. From that moment on, a portion of future tax revenue is already spoken for, not for schools, not for hospitals, but for interest. So governments manage money, they regulate it, they depend on it, but they don't own it in the way people imagine. Now let's move to the second suspect, banks. Banks feel powerful. They sit at the center of everything. They approve your loan, they deny your mortgage. They decide who gets access and who doesn't. And here's where things get strange. Most money in the modern economy is created by banks, not printed, typed into existence. When a bank gives you a loan, it doesn't hand you someone else's savings. It creates new money on the spot. Numbers appear on a screen. Debt and money are born together. This means banks don't just move money, they manufacture it. But, and this part matters, they don't fully own it either. Because every dollar they create comes with a matching liability. Your loan is their asset. Your debt is their claim. Banks live on the spread, the interest, the flow. They're powerful operators inside the system, but they're still constrained by regulations, by central banks, by liquidity rules, by panic. Banks don't own the game. They play it at scale. Which brings us to the third player, markets. This is where the real shift happens. Markets don't look like owners. They don't have flags or buildings. They don't give speeches. They just react. Prices go up, prices go down. Money moves. And because it feels abstract, people underestimate it. But markets decide something far more important than laws or policies. They decide confidence. Confidence determines interest rates. Interest rates determine debt costs. Debt costs determine survival. When markets trust you, money is cheap. When they don't, money disappears. Ask any country that watched its currency collapse in weeks. Ask any government forced to cut spending overnight because bond yields spiked. Markets don't vote. They don't protest. They withdraw. And that withdrawal is enough to bring entire economies to their knees. Here's the uncomfortable mechanism hiding underneath all of this. Money doesn't flow to what's useful. It flows to what feels safe and profitable. That's why asset prices inflate while wages stagnate. Why financial markets grow faster than the real economy. Why debt keeps rising even when productivity doesn't. Capital chases return, not value. And the people who control large pools of capital, pension funds, hedge funds, sovereign wealth funds, institutional investors, don't need to coordinate. They just respond to the same incentives: preserve capital, maximize yield, avoid risk. The result looks like control, even without a controller. Public narratives tell us governments steer the economy, that policy shapes outcomes, that elections change financial reality. But underneath that story is a quieter truth. Markets set the boundaries. Governments operate inside them. When policy aligns with market confidence, it works. When it doesn't, it gets punished. Higher borrowing costs, capital flight, currency pressure. No conspiracy required, just math and incentives. Now step back even further. Globally, money doesn't circulate evenly. It pools in financial centers, in reserve currencies, in systems that already have power. This creates a feedback loop. Capital flows towards stability. Stability attracts more capital. More capital increases influence. Meanwhile, developing economies borrow in foreign currencies, pay interest in stronger money, absorb shocks they didn't create. The system isn't broken, it's consistent. Which brings us back to the original question: who actually owns the world's money? Not governments, they rent it. Not banks, they intermediate it. Ownership belongs to whoever controls capital allocation at scale, those who decide where money goes, when it pauses, and when it leaves. That power doesn't sit in a single room. It emerges from markets, institutions, and incentives reinforcing each other. It's quiet, decentralized, and extremely effective. The irony is this: we argue endlessly about budgets, taxes, and policy, but the most important decisions happen elsewhere. In bond markets reacting in milliseconds, in capital reallocations no voter sees, in risk models adjusting quietly behind the scenes. And most people never notice, because the system doesn't need permission, it only needs confidence. So the final question isn't who owns the world's money, it's this: if money now answers primarily to markets, and markets answer to incentives, who is shaping those incentives, and who isn't at the table when those rules are written? That's the part of the system no one explains, and the part that matters most.